At 45, most fighters start to ease into retirement, retreating from the spotlight and slowing down after years of pushing their bodies to the limit. They transition into a quieter life, enjoying the fruits of their labor and settling into luxury. But Manny Pacquiao, he's different. Even as he enters his mid-40s, Pacquiao still trains with the same intensity, the same hunger, the same discipline that made him a global icon in the first place. His recent 30-second training video wasn't a call for attention. There was no grand announcement, no flashy media campaign, just raw footage of Pacquiao going through his workout in the gym, no dramatic edits, no cinematic angles. It was simply a video of him doing what he does best, showcasing the same precision and power that earned him his place in boxing history. In a world filled with flashy promotional videos and hipped-up return announcements, Pacquiao is understated. Training clips stood out precisely because of its simplicity. There were no special effects, no soft lighting, just Pacquiao, gloves cracking against pads, shoes squeaking across the canvas, and the unmistakable rhythm of a legend still fully in tune with the sport. The video quickly went viral. It wasn't just boxing fans reacting, it was everyone. Fighters, trainers, analysts, even people who hadn't followed boxing in years, all hit the play button, then replayed it, then paused it, struck by what they were seeing. What struck people wasn't just the fact that Pacquiao was still training, it was the sheer quality of his movements. This wasn't just a nostalgia workout for an aging fighter going through the motions. Pacquiao was tearing through combinations. With crisp double jabs, sharp left hooks, and footwork that had him pivoting and moving like he was still in his prime. Each move was executed with pinpoint precision and ferocity, demonstrating that despite his age, Pacquiao still has the speed, the power, and the mindset of a champion. Even seasoned fighters watching couldn't help but pause and take a second. Look, this wasn't about staying in shape or looking good for a highlight reel. This was Pacquiao, fully immersed in his craft, delivering a performance that looked like he was gearing up for his next big fight, as if he was still in the thick of his legendary career, within hours of posting. The video spread across social media, flooding YouTube and boxing forums, and it even reached sports pages that usually focus on trending NBA takes. But the reactions weren't about whether or not Pacquiao was coming back. It wasn't about a potential fight on the horizon. The focus was on what they had just witnessed, a fighter who, despite being 45, was still able to move with the same intensity and purpose as someone half his age. The training footage wasn't just fast or impressive for his age. It was elite, period. The kind of speed that rivaled fighters in their prime. The timing and sharpness of his movements could easily put him back in contention against the world's best, even if that's not his intention. This wasn't about flexing his legacy or trying to prove anything. It was Pacquiao doing what he loves, giving everything in the gym because that's what he's always done. The comments didn't dwell on the past, they didn't say remember when. They asked if he wanted to, could he do it again? It wasn't just a workout, it was a glimpse into Pacquiao's mindset. The fact that he could still perform at such a high level made it clear that his hunger for boxing and his dedication to the craft hadn't waned. Even after all these years, the video struck a deep chord with boxing fans and analysts alike. It wasn't just about how fast Pacquiao was, it was about the realness of it. It felt like a genuine moment, not a promotional tool or a marketing strategy. It was raw and unpolished, showing a fighter who's been in the game long enough to know that real work isn't about how many people are watching or how many followers you have. It's about putting in the work when no one is looking, when the cameras are off, and when the spotlight isn't on you. There was no flashy soundtrack, no slow motion zooms, just Pacquiao in his gym, throwing punches with a fire that could have been mistaken for someone at the height of their career. What stood out wasn't just how fast he moved, it was the authenticity of it all. It wasn't a workout created for likes or views. It was a training session where every punch mattered, every step was purposeful, and every moment spoke to the years of dedication Pacquiao had invested into his craft. It felt different from anything else in boxing today because it was real. And that rawness made it hit harder than any flashy promo video or edited reel could. And then, of course, there was Canelo Álvarez. The silence from Canelo was deafening. Despite being one of the biggest names in boxing and the current face of the sport, Canelo didn't offer a single word about Pacquiao's training video. But in boxing, sometimes silence speaks louder than anything else. Pacquiao didn't call out Canelo, didn't tag him, didn't even mention him in the post. But when a figure like Pacquiao shares a training clip like that, the world watches. And Canelo, even without a word, was pulled into the conversation. Why? Because both of these fighters live in the same orbit. Pacquiao has long been considered one of the greatest of his era, and his presence in the boxing world still carries weight, even when he's not actively competing. When Pacquiao puts in a performance like that, it reminds everyone of the level of greatness that he represents, and it forces everyone else to take a look in the mirror. Canelo may be the face of modern boxing, but Pacquiao is the face of an era that refuses to fade. The comparisons aren't just about technique or titles, they're about something deeper. Pacquiao's performance wasn't a jab at Canelo. It was a challenge, but not in the typical sense. It was an example of how true champions don't let age, fame, or retirement slow them down. The question wasn't whether Canelo could do the same at 46, it was whether Canelo would even want to. Because what Pacquiao showed the world wasn't just his ability to move fast, it was his unyielding desire to keep pushing, even when there's nothing left to prove. This subtle challenge between the two men underscores a larger narrative in boxing, a narrative about how fighters maintain their dedication to the craft long after they've achieved all there is to achieve. Canelo and Pacquiao come from two different eras, but both share an undeniable commitment to their respective crafts. Pacquiao doesn't need to come back to prove anything. He doesn't need the money or the titles. He's already done what most fighters can only dream of, winning titles in 8 different weight classes, holding a world championship for more than 2 decades, and becoming a global icon. So why does he still train with such intensity? The answer is simple. It's because boxing is in his DNA. Training is no longer about the next fight or the next paycheck, it's about staying true to himself, staying connected to the discipline and work ethic that made him the fighter he became. It's about living as a fighter, not just when the cameras are on, but every day. In a world where most retired fighters fade into business ventures, commentary booths, or just quiet living, Pacquiao's dedication to his craft is a reminder that greatness doesn't stop, it evolves. The absence of any flashy angles or self-promotion in Pacquiao's training video was also a stark contrast to the overproduced training clips that have become common in the world of boxing. Today, every fighter with a social media following feels the need to show off their workout routines, complete with dramatic background music, slow-motion shots, and choreographed grunts. But Pacquiao's video was something different. It wasn't staged. There were no neon lights, no filters, just a fighter in plain shorts, doing what he's done for years, working hard, staying sharp, and pushing himself to be better. That's what made it so striking. In a sport where image often overshadows substance, Pacquiao's 30-second training clip was a reminder of what it means to truly love the sport. There was no agenda behind it, no endorsement deal attached, just a moment of truth. For the younger generation of fighters scrolling through their feeds, seeing a 46-year-old man training like that was a wake-up call. If Pacquiao can move like that at his age, why can't they put in that same level of work? It wasn't just the veterans who were inspired by Pacquiao's video. Young fighters everywhere were stunned by the sight of a 46-year-old still putting in the work like it was day one. They saw a fighter who had already achieved everything yet still had the hunger, the discipline, and the drive to keep improving. In a time where training videos are often more about creating content than actual effort, Pacquiao's clip served as a blueprint for what real commitment to the sport looks like. It wasn't about aesthetics or trying to impress anyone. It was about doing the work, day in and day out, without needing the praise or recognition. This is what true dedication to boxing looks like. It's not about performing for the cameras or looking good for a viral post, it's about grinding away in silence, pushing yourself to be better every day. Pacquiao's training video wasn't a nostalgic look back at a past fighter, it was a glimpse into the mentality of a fighter who's still moving forward, still growing, and still hungry. And that is why it resonated with so many.